I've treated thousands of people as a physical therapist, and time again, I've noticed the exact same weaknesses causing the same pain and injury, even in people who think they're healthy. Today we're going over the top 4 areas to address before you begin to feel those consequences. Now, working from the ground up, we're starting with your foot. The foot is literally the foundation of everything that we do when it comes to lifting weights. If the foot is strong and stable, we are better able to transfer force as we push through the ground up to whatever joint is moving. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never really seen anybody doing foot exercises at the gym. Instead, they place their foot in this confined space in the shoe that's designed to support the foot. A lot of people think that they need a supportive shoe because it's good for the foot. In my opinion, this is doing the opposite. What happens when you have a supportive shoe is that the muscles in the foot don't have to do their job to help support the arch. Now, depending on how long you spend in that shoe, for many people it's decade after decade, those muscles in the foot will progressively get weaker and weaker, meaning that if you don't have that shoe, your foot will flatten out and move into what's called pronation when it doesn't have that additional support. Now, ideally, the foot is strong enough to support itself. An easy way to do this is simply remove the shoe or switch to something that has less support, meaning that the muscles in the foot then have to function more than they already are. There are some other exercises you can try, such as spreading the toes or lifting up the arch of the foot when the foot is flat on the ground. I've tried to have many people do these exercises. I have yet to see someone who can do them day one. The issue is because we spend all day in a shoe, the brain muscle connection isn't exactly there, meaning that they lost voluntary control of these muscles. Now, this is a problem because if you can't activate these muscles, how is your foot supposed to support itself? So by training the brain muscle connection and actually using these muscles, we can help support the foot independent of a shoe so that you can actually use the foot the way it's designed to be used. Now, moving up the chain, we're going to talk about the gluteus medius muscle in the hip. This muscle is important for lifting, running, and even walking. If you've ever seen somebody who walks and they waddle side to side, or the hip drops on either side, it's because this muscle is weak and it can't support the weight of the body when you're standing on only one leg. Now, in the context of weightlifting, if you see somebody squat and their knees cave in, means that this muscle is weak, or the foot is weak and it's pronating, like we talked about before. To strengthen this muscle, we simply need to do some sort of abduction of the hip. Now, there are a lot of machines that you can do this with. You could do band walking, either front to back or side to side. If you're at the gym, there's an easy substitution you can make to doing regular squats, and that is to do some sort of lunge or a single leg squat. Now, when you add this single leg activity, or one that biases one leg versus the other, this muscle has to fire in order to keep the pelvis level. With both legs down, it doesn't have to do as much because you have support from both sides. As a side note, every single person I've seen who has a knee replacement does not have a very strong gluteus medius muscle because of how this affects the alignment of the leg when we move. Now, it also causes back pain because if the pelvis drops, the spine, obviously attached to the pelvis, is pulled in either direction, which brings us to the next point, which is core strengthening. Everybody already knows about core strengthening, and a lot of people do it. But not everybody trains it the right way. If you find yourself doing a lot of planks and isometric exercises for the core, this isn't enough to actually maintain strength and stability in the back. Now, think of every single other muscle group in the body. Do you train any of them with only isometric exercises? Hopefully not. Now, there's nothing wrong with an isometric exercise, but we have to remember that the back can move front to back, it can go side to side, we can twist, and we should be strengthening the muscles that do these motions all the way through each motion. This is how we train every other joint to be strong and healthy, so why would we not apply the same logic to the back? If you only do isometrics, you will be strong and stable in whatever position you've trained the isometric, but this doesn't necessarily translate to when the spine is in a different position. So to best stabilize in all positions, we should strengthen in all positions. Finally, we are talking about the rotator cuff. Now, what the rotator cuff does is it simply rotates the arm in and out in whatever position it is in. In addition to that, it helps to stabilize the shoulder joint. Now, the shoulder joint is special in that it is the most mobile joint in the body, meaning it's the most flexible naturally, but at the same time, it is lacking stability because it is so mobile. This is why the rotator cuff is very important. When we're lifting overhead, the rotator cuff should fire to keep the shoulder joint congruent or keep the bones aligned correctly. When the muscles are weak, this can shift around and cause issues. Now, not only is the shoulder joint at risk of injury when the rotator cuff is weak, but the rotator cuff itself is at risk of injury. One of the more problematic surgeries that people have, especially older people, is a torn rotator cuff. Now, what this does is it limits their ability to lift their arm overhead. Because that's kind of important, they go and get it repaired. The problem is this repair takes several months, if not a year, to recover from fully. The best way to avoid this is to simply keep the rotator cuff strong forever. And we do that by either loading up bands or weights down here, rotating in and out, same thing up here. Now, depending on what position you're in, you're targeting a different muscle. So I would train rotation in several different positions. Long term, this is going to help keep the shoulder stable and healthy so that you can actually reach overhead when you're older. Obviously, that is not an exhaustive list of everything that can go wrong, but it is a solid start in terms of the common issues that I've seen. If you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you could hit that like button. Otherwise, if you have a comment or any questions, you can leave them in the chat below. And then if you want to subscribe to my channel, I talk about how we can build a physically fit and physically functional body so that our quality of life does not diminish as we age.